Hello, MCU fans. Today we're going to take a look at the question of whether or not Winter Soldier works better in spring of 2014 or early January of 2014. And you may be saying to yourself, oh my goodness, that's only like a few months. Why does that matter? Well, first of all, if you're an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, it's a really big deal. So you need to watch this video if you like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for sure. But even if you're not into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think you'll still find it really interesting to see why Marvel definitively places this movie in spring of 2014. Now, of course, the Marvel Cinematic Universe official timeline book won't be out for another few weeks, but Amazon.com released the index online a few weeks ago, and if you looked at that index really closely, you can pretty much figure out the entire timeline. And that's why we know that Winter Soldier is in spring of 2014. But does that make sense? Well, let's dive right in and see what we can find out. So now we've entered October, which means we're starting a new contest and a couple exciting announcements about the October contest. First of all, it will be celebrating the fact that the channel has finally hit 10,000 subscribers. So I really want to thank everyone that supports the channel. Whether you're subscribing, watching videos, liking videos, leaving comments, you know I love to respond to all those. No matter how you're supporting the channel, I just really thank you, because this growth has been really in just the last year. And prior to a year ago, I didn't have many subs at all, because all I was doing was loading cute videos of my son and silly comedy videos. So it's really been in the last year that this growth has been so big. So thank you. Obviously, it wouldn't happen without you. There wouldn't be a channel without you. So to celebrate that, I'm going to up the ante for October. And in addition to choosing between one of the books, if you don't want one of those, if you'd rather choose something different, I'm adding the options of the new Steel books coming out. And of course, these are the physical copies of the shows from 2021 on Disney Plus, some of the earlier shows, some of the best shows, right? And you can choose from either a DVD version, Blu-ray, or 4K. So you can choose either one of the books or one of the Steel books. So hope that excites you a little bit even more about the contest. But also, to celebrate hitting 10K, just for the month of October, because I can't afford to do this very often, we're going to have 5 random winners. So 5 people will get the option to choose between one of the books or one of the Steel books. So very cool. Remember, all you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment, and I'll announce the winners in early November. Speaking of, because September has ended, we need to announce that winner. And the winner for September's contest is Drew Orion. Drew, thank you for your very nice comment. And it happened to be on the Werewolf by Night video, which is perfect since Werewolf by Night's coming out in color in a few weeks. So Drew, all you have to do is reach out to me either on Discord or on my email, and you can find both of those on the About page for the channel. For everyone else, best of luck in October. Okay, so this is the series so far. This is everything I've covered, including today. And the only thing left, I promise it's the next one, is going to be the OG movie itself, Iron Man 1. So why did I do these videos? I've had a couple people ask that. Well, when the timeline book comes out, I really want to focus on all the things the timeline book says versus the things it doesn't say. And every one of these are kind of the more controversial entries, meaning at least some timeline, either my timeline or the Marvel Cinematic Universe Wiki's timeline or Geek Critiques, another very popular timeline. One of those timelines got it wrong. In some cases, multiple timelines got it. None of us got it right. So then that's fine. We all try our best and look at the facts at hand, and then we find out what Marvel says. But that's why I'm bringing these up. Is these are ones where there was some confusion. There were a lot of possible entries, and people looked at different facts to get different answers. So anyway, that's why I've done this series. I hope you're enjoying it. Only one left to go after today. All right, I was also asked, would I cover as part of this series Ant-Man, in particular, whether or not the movie will be from July to October, which is what we see on the cell phone there. It's pretty blurry, but still, it's in the movie. Or is it more like, July to early August? I think they're going to ignore this. I think that it's an errant date, because I just don't think there's any way the movie is 3.5, 4 months long. It just doesn't make sense. So we'll see. The problem is I'm not going to cover it now because you can't tell from the index. There's nothing after Ant-Man. So I really have no idea when this movie ends. So just something to look forward to when the book comes out. Hopefully we will know the answer of, when it ends. But my guess is it's going to end in summertime. Okay, so on to Winter Soldier. So we need to first look at the things that come before Winter Soldier in 2014 to see why Winter Soldier is more like a spring and can't be early January. So first of all, this page was released on Amazon and shows us that Tony does his heart surgery to have the shrapnel removed in early 2014. Okay, great. So then if we look at the index, and I did do a video where I go into real detail on the index, and you check that out if you want, the whole index walk through. But we're going to talk just about Winter Soldier. So notice we have Iron Man there with Pepper Potts on page 109, 111, 113. So that's bleeding into 2014. Then we have Trevor, good old Trevor, in the All Hail the King one-shot. That's where he's in jail and gets, broken out, kidnapped, if you will, by the True Mandarin. So that's next, page 114. And then we jump to, finally, Winter Soldier, 114 to 118. So we see that several things have to happen before Winter Soldier in the timeline. And in particular, if we look at Disney Plus, which, as you remember, has been incredibly accurate. Other than Shang-Chi, it is 100% accurate with the timeline book. So this goes right with it, right? Iron Man 3, then All Hail the King, then Captain America Winter Soldier. But the key is, All Hail the King has to be at least a couple months after Iron Man 3 because, Trevor's had his posse, he's teamed up with his posse there that protects him, and he's done several interviews with the dude that ultimately kidnaps him. So, at the earliest, maybe February, meaning Captain America Winter Soldier is probably more like March. So keep that in mind. That's why it simply can't be early January. But why did anyone think early January? Well, I had it on my timeline that way, and so did the Marvel Cinematic Universe Wiki. So why? Well, let's start by looking to see what the movie itself tells us, which isn't much, but it does give us some information. So we learn that Captain America is 95 years old in The Winter Soldier. When he says, "I'm 95, I'm not dead." And he's responding to Natasha teasing him about dating and such. Well, we know he was born on July 4th of 1918, because that's revealed in the first Avenger. And so then we can add the math, and that means the movie has to be after July 4th of 2013 and before July 4th of 2014. Okay, great. We got a bit of a window there. Then we get some bum dates that don't help us. So notice in the upper left-hand corner when Batroc is captured, it's in October 12th of 2013. Well, we know the movie's in 2014 because that's what the index tells us, so that date's worthless. And then even more funny, when Fury is in the hospital, there on the wall over on the far right, and I know it's a little hard to read, so if we zoom in, is April 14th of 2013. So that means Fury was in the hospital before Batroc was captured, even though Batroc was captured before Fury was in the hospital. So clearly these are just dates showing that, yeah, they make mistakes and they miss them in post-production. So it just happens. In fact, that's again why I think the Ant-Man October date is going to be ignored, because it's wrong. It doesn't work and it's wrong, nor do these dates work. However, this date helps us. I just wish we could see a little more of it. I wish the flowers weren't in the way, but clearly it's not 2013, or it would look like a 3. We'd see the bar. It looks more like the peak of a 4. So now we know Fury's gravestone is in 2014. So the movie is either between January 2014 and July of 2014. So we're getting closer. Unfortunately, that's all it tells us. There's no more information to go off of in the movie. Bummer. So we have to look to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to get some more information. And there's a fantastic crossover, such a good crossover in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with this movie, Winter Soldier. So that's why Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. helps us place this movie in the timeline. So let's see what we can learn. And I know this is going to seem like a bit of a digression. It's not. Hold on to this for just a second. We have to look at the beginning of Season 2, even though it's Season 1 that crosses over with Winter Soldier. But we have to place Season 2 to figure out when Season 1 happens. So we learned that Season 2, Episode 1, is 1 year before the Age of Ultron crossover, which is in May of 2015 between Season 2, Episode 19 and 20. So May is the beginning of Season 2. That's what we really learned. And this crossover is awesome, by the way, with Age of Ultron. We get Maria Hill. R.I.P. Maria Hill. So many, though, cool crossovers from the movies show up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then, of course, if you're an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan and believe it's canon, which my position has always been until Marvel says it's not, it still is. But nonetheless, if you're an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, you believe that on the left, that's Coulson getting the helicarrier out of the mothballs, which then the helicarrier shows up in Age of Ultron. So, Season 2 has the Age of Ultron crossover and begins in May. Okay, what else do we learn? Well, Season 2 is months after Season 1 ends, because Coulson says our plane's been gathering dust for months, and Fitz has been growing isolated for months. And then the last really important quote from Talbot, who's a great character from the comics and has a huge role in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He is fantastic. He says, Coulson and team, managed to evade us, the government, for an entire winter. So that means that there's a winter between Season 2 and the end of Season 1. Okay, So let's place this on a timeline. So for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. timeline, which if you've seen my video, I go over this in detail. It's a pretty fun video, so you might check it out. But on the left is all the MCU stuff, the main MCU. So we have the one-shot, Agent Carter, and then the crossovers from season 1 of Thor, the kind of crossover with Iron Man 3, the major one with Winter Soldier, and the major one with Age of Ultron. So let's put the shows on. Agent Carter, 2 fantastic shows. Check those out if you've never seen them. Then Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1, Episode 1 through 7, and then the crossover with Thor in November. Then Episodes 8 through 16, and then the crossover with Winter Soldier in January. And then finally, Episodes 17 through 22 to finish out Season 1. And oh my goodness, I just can't say enough times how awesome the crossover is with Winter Soldier. You have to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1. It's so good for that crossover. Then, here's the stuff that now ties into what I said earlier. Season 2 starts in May, remember? It's several months after the ending of Season 1, and it is 4 months, and they chased them for all winter. Well, I mean, at least since January. It's not all winter, but maybe Talbot was, being dramatic. So then Season 2, Episodes 1 through 19 occur, and then that leads up to the Age of Ultron crossover, and then it finishes out with Episodes 20 through 22. So, okay, this is all fine and well, except for the fact that we now know that Winter Soldier's not in January. The earliest is March. And by the way, the movie came out in April, early April. I think it was April 4th of 2014. And remember, the philosophy for kind of phases 1 through 3 were, if we don't tell you differently, the movie is happening at the same time it came out. So a March timeframe or at most an early April timeframe, it works perfectly, right? Other than the fact that it doesn't work with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because if we push it to March, that really messes stuff up. So here's what's interesting, though. The wiki, which is awesome, right? It has so many great details. It did discover that there are some hints that the crossover with Winter Soldier is in March. Notice this calendar when this dude's being thrown against a wall. Look in the upper left-hand corner. It's a little hard to read, and I'm going to show you another shot that makes it even more clear. But yeah, that says March. And this is right before the crossover with Winter Soldier. Also, a funny note, you might be saying, like, who is this dude, right? It's some rando. No, it's not a rando. It's Blake. Remember Blake? He was in the one-shots and some of the movies. He makes a nice appearance in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s first season. Well, that don't look like Blake, right? So it's kind of funny. To get this screen capture, we had to pause it here, and it's the stuntman. So that's pretty funny. I mean, that stuntman don't look nothing like Blake. What on earth? But anyway, don't pay attention to him. Put Blake's head on his. But more importantly, see the March calendar. And then here, as I promised, here's another shot. That's Deathlock, who's a really cool character. Again, got to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1. Watch the whole series, but start with 1. And if you like Season 1, keep going. Anyway, notice on the far right, March. Well, there you go, right? Maybe this has been March all along. Then also, after the Winter Soldier crossover, we have another calendar, and this one looks at least like March. So we're going to get to what it says above the dates in just a second, but notice Saturday is the 1st. And if you go and look at March, the calendar for March in 2014, Saturday is the 1st. And it's perfect. In fact, and there's 31 days even. So it's perfect. Other than the fact that if you zoom in on this thing, the word up above is Mayo. And while many of you, like me, probably don't know Spanish, you probably know Mayo, right? Cinco de Mayo, which is the 5th of May, which is meaning this calendar is May. Here's the problem, though. In 2014, May 1st was not a Saturday. So I don't know what's going on here. What do you trust, right? Do you trust the Mayo or do you trust the numbers? I think you trust the numbers because that's more work to get it right. But nonetheless, whatever. Even if we throw this one out, we still have the other March. But if we go with the days, which clearly align to March, then that's saying, yeah, definitely the crossover is in March, and therefore Winter Soldier is in March. So we're going to change these Januaries now over to March. So, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, here's the problem. Let's look at some of these statements that we saw earlier. Is it really months since the end of Season 1 to the beginning of Season 2? I mean, sort of. It's 2 months, so I guess that's months. It's plural. But even worse is Talbot right that we pursued you all winter? Because that's referring to the end of Season 1 to the beginning of season 2. And if the end of season 1 is in March, that's not really all of winter. So unfortunately, some of the lines get goobered up a bit, but I don't blame the movies for this. I don't blame the timeline book. I blame Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. When they started season 2, Talbot shouldn't have said that. That's the bottom line. So it might have to be retconned that Talbot really said since the end of winter instead of all of winter. But anyway, kind of interesting. But I have updated the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. timeline on my Google Drive. So if you want to download that, you can. But that's been updated. Then also, here is the main timeline for the MCU, what's being covered in at least the timeline book. So when I say the main timeline, I really mean what's going to be in the timeline book. Notice there is All Hail the King in February, and there is Winter Soldier in March. I did get a really good question when I did the Shang-Chi video. Somebody said, hey, did Trevor mention how much time he's been in prison, since he was captured out of the All Hail the King one-shot? Well, he was in prison then too, but he got captured by the Mandarin, right? So did he say how long he was captured? No, they give vague statements. So first, Wen Wu says, some years ago, a terrorist from America needed a boogeyman, of course, referring to Trevor. So some years ago. That's not helpful. And then Trevor himself says, well, some time ago, I was offered the role of a terrorist. All right, I'd love it if they gave us an exact amount, but they didn't. So anyway, we pretty much know from the timeline book, though, All Hail the King is in February of 2014, and Shang-Chi is in March, April of 2024. So that means it's been 10 years, about 10 years that he's been there. So poor dude, man, that's a long time. That's a long time. So anyway, speaking of the rest of the timeline, so here is the rest of Phase 2 and Phase 3. Here's Phase 4. And then, of course, Phase 5 moving into 2026. Craziness. So don't forget, we do have the contest, the 10K sub celebration. So be a subscriber, leave a comment. 5 random winners will be announced at the beginning of November and can choose between one of these books or these steel books. Also, we'd love to have you join the Discord. I will leave a pinned comment so you can join the Discord if you'd like. One of the fun things we're doing is a retrospective on the MCU, one movie at a time, asking people, your favorite character, favorite performance, favorite scene, etc. It's been a lot of fun. So we're doing Ant-Man and the Wasp there. So come join. We'd love to have you on there. And again, a pinned comment so you can join. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.